Hello, you. I'm Laila Stancioff, your host, and welcome to the Find You podcast, From Sick of It to Simply You. Here, our guests will tell us about their transformational journey and challenges they have faced. You also learn tips and strategies on how to do it yourself. Ready for some inspiration? Let's start. And our today's guest is Sandra Kanaška. She graduated in the Riga Graduate School of Law, but went off to work with marketing, while also creating her own company, WolliMolli, while having a full-time job. How can she combine all of this? Let's ask her. Hi, Sandra. Very nice to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the invitation.
It's very nice to have you, especially because we've known each other for many years, and I have seen it all happen, from far, because now you're not living in Latvia anymore. But yes, we're going to talk today about the fact that you are an entrepreneur, so you have a business and you still have a full-time job, and which is, it's very challenging time-wise, and I bet a lot of people were like, how you're going to do that? So tell us a little bit first about WolliMolli. How did you think about it? How did it inspire you?
Mm-hmm. The story started more than 7 years ago when I was in Vienna, and I got the message from my sister that she got pregnant. And as being full-time aunt and being also a very devoted sister during the whole pregnancy, we started changing topic from, let's say, career oriented questions to actually more personal ones, to questions like that there are issues amongst the parents with the kids, and the kids' clothing questions, meaning that, as you might know, Latvia is very drastically weather-changing country, meaning that one day it's warm, another day it's cold, and the question about thermoregulatory clothing came in. And this is one of the things and one of the issues that I have noticed during my conversations with the sisters. At the same time, I was thinking I don't want to build just a fashion brand for the kids. I wanted to build a company that has a mission and that also caters to some of the social issues, or also supports some society's group in Latvia. And so this is how the idea of WolliMolli was born, to build up a ethical company which provides not only high quality clothing, but is also empowering artisan women from Latvia, coming from, for instance, economically challenging backgrounds, being single moms, being grandmas, and giving them space by doing what they truly love, which is, in our case, knitting. And this is how the ideas of WolliMolli was born.
It's very nice how it's related to your family, to you taking care of the kids, being with your sister. I think that's very nice, and that's really a place that sometimes inspires us so much. And well, what was people's reaction? Because it was 7 years ago, so like we're young, you're even younger than I am, so you were pretty young. How old were you 7 years ago?
I just turned 28, so at that time I was like 21.
Yeah, so there you go. You're pretty young and you have this idea of, I'm going to create a company. What was people's reaction to that?
So I will turn this discussion from a different perspective. I do think that in Latvia, as this is I would say, quite innovative country, for us youngsters, it was quite normal to build some small companies, some small ideas, because I'm not sure if you know, actually during the high school, we have some small programs like Junior Achievement in Latvia, which actually supports like small businesses of the students. So I think it was not the hardest thing, but the hardest thing for people to understand was like, you're young, you don't have kids, why you build such like business model? And this was one of the things what I was challenged with, to really like explain the whole story, how like being only maybe 21 years old, I also understand not only social issues, but also issues which comes amongst the parents. And also, of course, convinced like why the idea is great and why actually I have the capabilities of really developing a company which really caters not only to the social issue, but also for the needs of new parents. And I think that was the hardest issue, at least from my side, what I needed to tackle.
Like the credibility that you could understand both things at
Yes,
that
exactly.
age.
Yes.
And how is it to have a company and still have a full-time job? How do you manage that?
That's also a very good question. I do believe, and I always believed by the saying, the more you do, the more you can do. Of course, it's always about the priorities. And I also want to say, if we are very transparent, sometimes I also do face difficulties in harder, let's say, times, in more challenging times at work, to combine, let's say, both a professional life and the business life. However, I think here comes in priorities, and really like planning, a lot of planning your day, planning, like, for instance, sometimes also your weekend. And I would say that, with years and with the practice, it became better and better. But I do think that you need to have a very good also planning abilities to be able actually to manage both your professional life and as well grow your business.
That's pretty impressive. Have you had any burnouts in between? Because that was a topic of another, our another episode we had of, oh, I was in the middle of all of this, and then at some point I just, broke out totally. Doctor said you have to stop, and then she realized, oh wow, I was totally burned out. So, have you gone through that?
Yes, actually, in my life, I have experienced burnout in actually quite young age, but it happened before actually I started my company and working. At that time, I was in early actually 20s, and it happened before I developed WolliMolli, that I was working a full-time job and actually having also full-time studies, which I was motivated to finish in 3 years. And I was quite overworking, and I learned it hard way why it is important to plan your day, why sometimes it's important by also planning your day, by putting stop and also putting boundaries, because in between we are not robots at the end of the day, and it's important also to take care of ourselves. And yes, answering to your question, I have had a burnout in very early age. However, I think this burnout helped me to understand myself more better and why productivity matters, and also that taking a breaks, to planning a time and planning also your time for yourself and your hobbies, it's really, really essential, because only then you can be even more productive. And this is really what I understood quite in a young age, but also in a hard way.
So, what do you do to take care of yourself? If you, would like to share a couple of things.
Yes, I actually developed quite range of the hobbies. First of all, I do enjoy singing. So in my free time, when I have time, I enjoy playing my own music. And quite currently, it does not happen maybe that frequently, but I would say once a week, I try to manage to have rehearsals, and I'm singing in also the choir, actually Wise Pop International Choir. And besides of that, I also integrated in my everyday life, actually, quite kind of running, because it really helps me to get my mind off. And I think it's also a very nice way and healthy way how you can get out a little bit, get some fresh air. And also, of course, it helps you with the managing, for instance, your stress levels and so on. And so I think these both things really helps me also sometimes to disconnect and really to relax. And apart from that, I would say I am trying to be very mindful. So on the weekends, for instance, or before weekends, if I saw that it was like a very intensive week, let's put it this way, I'm also sometimes, let's say, shifting the plans. And instead of, for instance, I don't know, going to the events and so on, also taking some time for myself, for a good book, and just relaxing myself.
Yeah, that's very important, because it's true. I've been talking to a lot of people and also during the coaching, and that's in a way a common issue, that all the focus is just on, I want to be more productive at work, I want work to go better, and when it's better, then I'll be able to take care of my life. But actually, if you're not taking care of everything else, if you're not you, if you don't have time to have energy, then of course the work doesn't go that well. So the fact that you put priority on all those things and you make sure it happens is really what allows you to do, all the rest and still be there. Tell me, what does WolliMolli bring to you? If we talk about, heart satisfaction, does it bring to you in everyday life?
First of all, it brings me joy, because I do consider also WolliMolli as like my heart project. It brings me joy to see happy customers. It brings me joy to see happy co-workers of mine. And this project helps me to see that also in our everyday life, we can make a change. And yes, it gives me just like the energy, to work and to continue working. And yeah, if I would need really to conclude it in like few sentences, I would say that. And of course, it's very nice to see that such also small brand can really have an impact and touch upon the hearts of many, many people, not only locally in Latvia, but also internationally. And that I found quite empowering and very, very nice.
And what are your future plans?
That's also a very good question. We want to continue with developing our concept, and actually from product-wise also come into market with some new products which are coming up. At the same time, we still have a goal to go more aggressively into German-speaking market. So meaning not only Austria, but also Germany, Switzerland. This would be like, or let's say, near future focus. And then hopefully we will be able, after, of course, we will get a market and a stable market share here in Germany, to be able to spread further in actually Nordic and northern countries, because we see really also by, for instance, collaboration with 220.lv in, for instance, Estonia, that people really also find product very appealing, and we can see demand. So the question is, of course, about the resources and about the proper strategy. And as we were talking about that a little bit earlier, about the focus. And so, but this is more like, let's say, further, like, let's say, future plans. Because first things first, and we want, as I said, to maintain and increase also the market share here in German-speaking countries.
And how is it to do all of that being away from your original home, Latvia? Because you also have family there, right? So actually you have family in Latvia and in Vienna, next to Vienna?
In Germany, but yes, it's also a very good question. Because I do believe with this brand and with the constant communication with Latvia, it somehow still creates the bridge between me here in Vienna and Latvia. And that's also a very nice thing. And, at first, you think that you're like homesick, but actually I do believe now in the modern life, with phone calls, with being able to also speak in your mother tongue in a daily life, it somehow brings me and gives me like this connection with Latvia.
That's very nice. But well, we do miss you here.
I miss you too, guys.
Nice. And it's very nice to see. Yeah, I see online always in the social media, the new products, the pictures. It's really very nice to see how it grew. I remember how in the beginning there are all these questions with whom to collaborate. At some point, you did have an idea of doing it maybe with South America, but it was really, very difficult to do it from here. So yeah, it was a real challenge to have it going. And it's very nice to see how, you managed to go to the country you want to go. You graduated, you got a job, you got a company, and everything is going well. So that's very cool. What else would you tell, to other women that have, these ambitious dreams? Because actually you're having all you want, like in the sense that you both traveled, you have the company, you have the job, like, yeah, what would you advise in terms of following the dream?
First of all, never be scared to try things out, because all the best ideas comes from that. But at the same time, before you start business, be really mindful of understanding and really actually also investing time in, for instance, having a great coach, or in my case, I was part of the LIA, to have a coaching which helps you to navigate through the whole process so you don't feel alone. And this is one of my takeaways, what I actually have understood. Like business-wise, it's such a great thing to be able to have, first of all, a mentor, and also, for instance, a business partner, because it makes things like way much easier. It makes the whole problem solving situations like more smoother. And also, like in my belief, more heads are better than one. You can get a different perspective, and you can get also, for instance, a new, let's say, ideas to solutions to your problems. And yes, this is actually one of the takeaways I could tell the young and all women. But first of all, then the first step is really to take courage to do something new, because it's unknown, it's uncertainty. And in my opinion, with the guiding, you really can manage to go throughout the process very successfully. And also, I think it's important to note, because many people are scared of failure, but also failure is a very great lesson, to you to understand, okay, what to improve. And actually, also, there are so many use cases of being entrepreneur, and actually sometimes that the first ideas are not the greatest ones, and you develop one and very great one. And I think it's like the one more dimension with what actually we have to work to also accept that sometimes failing or making mistakes is also part of the life, and it's also part of the business life.
Very true. And well, I hope this interview will inspire many women to, give this step to creating their own thing. The fact that it's possible to combine a full-time job with, starting a business. And in some cases, the full-time job is, hey, I have kids, that's kind of my full-time job. And it's still, you can still combine, and it's still possible. So I hope this really inspires. I see in Latvia a lot of women going for creating something of their own. A lot go to maternity leave and say, okay, I don't want to go back to the previous job. I want to find something. So I think your story is very nice in terms of, yeah, I was young, I did it, it worked, like you got all the support that we know it's available around, and all around in Europe and the US, there's so many incubators that support and new companies and support women specifically as well. So yeah, I hope a lot of people get inspired, they do their own thing. And let's see if someday we get your twin on the podcast as well, because she also have her things to share. So yeah. Thank you very much, Sandra. This is very interesting. And again, we stay in touch. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You just listened to the Find You podcast, from Sick of It to Simply You. It was wonderful to have you here. Stay tuned for the next episodes.